of the questions I get asked probably most frequently is, when do I get over grief? And the short answer is, you don't. You learn to live your life, adapt your life around grief. And another comment I often hear is, oh, that's so morbid. Like, how can you work with grief? And that's so depressing, and grief is depressing. And I agree, it's not the most cheerful topic in the world. But the reality is, we are all going to experience grief and loss, which is why I decided to start this podcast, Walking the Path of Grief. I'm Di Atherton. I am a certified death doula and grief guide, and I've had a long time fascination with death and dying and why it is so misunderstood, especially in Western cultures. The indigenous tribes, they accept grief as a natural part of life, which is exactly what it is. Everything dies. Everything on this planet we inhabit will die. It is born or it grows and it dies. Civilizations die. Empires eventually die. Everything dies. And yet grief is so misunderstood. It's swept under the carpet. We don't know what to do with it. We're not prepared for it. And then when it happens, it's a huge shock. The other challenge is that grief is not one emotion. It also doesn't have a timeline. I can't tell you, if you are going through a grief journey, how that will show up for you, because grief is as unique as each of us, and it has many different ways of showing up. So I decided to start this podcast to talk about grief, not just around the death of someone you love, but there are many, many kinds of grief. During the pandemic, there were so many layers to grief: loss of businesses, loss of jobs, loss of homes, yes, the deaths of loved ones, loss of dreams, people who didn't get to graduate, they didn't go to a graduation, birthdays and other important celebrations, weddings that didn't happen. And all of those are a loss and bring some kind of grief. There is grief around the empty nest, when your children leave home, when you lose that role as a parent that you've had for so many years. There's grief around aging, grief around relocation. Even when it's planned and you're excited about it, there is still a part of you that grieves the loss of what you had and what you know. So walking the path of grief is going to take a look at all of this from my experiences, from the experiences I've had with clients, from the research that I do. Another interest is grief in the workplace bereavement. Like, how do companies manage with staff who return to work after a few days having lost a life partner or a child? How does it show up for that employee? How do people behave around someone who is grieving? And it's amazing how awkward people feel, how they will avoid someone who has suffered a bereavement. And then that person feels even more isolated and more alone. So watch out for the first episode. I'm really excited to just share and educate people that grief and death and dying are a natural part of life and can be sacred and profound journeys of growth. I look forward to seeing you in episode 1 very soon.